with Brother Tim and Frady here on WPMH 100.1 The Lighthouse. Picking Up the Habit explores biblical topics, culture, and the world around us through a Christian biblical perspective. Join us today and give us a call at 757 488 5299. And now, here is Brother Tim and Frady.
Hey, everybody, this is Brother Tim, and you're listening to Picking Up the Habit here on the Lighthouse Radio Network. I'm sitting here with my main man, Frady. Hey, Frady.
Hey, everybody.
We're here every Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30 to carry on those conversations you want to talk about. Our number 7, what?
I got a conversation I want to talk about.
What?
I heard a rumor.
Oh, let's not go there.
No.
757-488-5299. That's 757-488-5299.
I literally need everyone that's listening right now to call 757-488-5299, but not to talk about with me. Yes, we can talk about anything you want, but we got a special. It's Brother Tim's birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Yeah, everybody, it is Brother Tim's birthday. So if you happen to see Brother Tim or know Brother Tim or find a way to reach out to Brother Tim, wish him a happy birthday. And now he's going to kill me and we're going to have a topic. Go ahead.
No, because then you'd be dead and then we wouldn't have a topic. But I do need my little reminder up there. It is my birthday, but what's more important to me, folks, is that when I joined the monastery, I knew that one of these days I was probably going to forget which day was my anniversary. So I joined the monastery on my birthday. So I choose to think of today as my 14th year as a monastic. So for 14 years, I've been living the dedicated life of a monastic Christian in a community. However, the community was dissolved in 2013. But I was blessed by my church to continue that.
I wouldn't say it was dissolved. I mean, yes, it's not in the same position it was when I met you. I will totally be the first person to admit I have seen the unfortunate downfall of the monastery, but you're still holding strong and they're still doing the great work. I mean,
yeah,
you don't have people there. You don't have, I mean, I know you have,
we don't have a retreat center anymore.
Yeah, you have a building now where some people could stay if need be, but the pantry's still going on. That's it. You've been doing that for 14 years. That's a good thing.
Yep, that's still going on. In fact, things are gradually growing bigger. We're having a big issue with homeless right now. On a side note, let me share this with you folks. There was a court ruling in the 6th Circuit Court. I believe it was in 2019 or 2020. I don't know why it's now becoming a major issue. But it is. We were given some property. Livingstone Monastery was to build another monastery to replace the one that disappeared from us or dissolved. And the city we're changing city managers now, so I have hope. The city said we were going to be a homeless shelter. Therefore, they didn't want us to build monastery. And there isn't such a thing as a monastery in the city code. So we can build a church, we can build a pantry, but we can't build a monastery per se.
I'll stay quiet.
So the land that we have is under the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. It's perfect for what a monastery would need. Land where people could walk.
Oh, I know the plans, and I've seen the plans in the land, and I went the old Olivet building and all that. I know that, and I totally agree. It'd be a perfect monastery, but I also know why, as you know, I know why the wonderful city of Newport News is rejecting you.
But it was a place where people could walk to be close with God, and it's protected by the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. So nobody could go back and bulldoze, destroy the creeks or the nature that are around there. But unfortunately, periodically, homeless go back there and camp.
Well, there's lots of woods, and it's safe.
And recently, that's been happening again. So the city cited us yet once again, asked us to clean it up. But this time, there's a ruling in the 6th Circuit Court, and it says, or excuse me, not the 6th, the 9th Circuit Court, that the cities cannot force homeless to move from where they are unless they offer them a better place to stay. And the logic behind it is that being homeless is not a crime, and therefore forcing them to move is a penalization of a crime that's not a crime.
I mean, I would agree. There's no. I mean, they're not. It's circumstance. I mean, there are some people who choose to be
Right.
homeless. We both know that there are
Yeah.
some people. We personally know people who choose to be homeless, but for the most part, people they didn't do anything
So
wrong. They just had
if
fallen by time.
they camp in a school playground,
That's a
yeah, see, that's where these issues are coming in. So
that's a negative about government though, because it's
because
all just broad
right,
strokes. There's just one large.
and it's not ours. It's in the Ninth Circuit Court, and it's affecting all of Hampton Roads right now. In fact, Alaska just filed again based upon this. The issue being that we weren't sure because our land was governed by the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, whether we had to abide by this thing or not. Well, thankfully, the city said we are still privately owned, although we aren't privately governed. We are privately owned, and therefore we do have the authority to ask people to leave our property for trespassing. It took us 3 weeks to be able to get to that. Yeah.
Wouldn't I don't I don't know
Yeah.
the complete circumstances ever since I moved on this side of the water, but doesn't that mean they can't ask you not to either? Imagine
Not to ask.
Yeah.
Zone says that camping on any land, unless it's zoned
That
for
wouldn't happen.
camping.
That's a,
Right. Well, it's the same reason why
the show's not about that.
little houses,
Right.
tiny homes cannot happen within the city of Newport News.
You
In
know,
fact, they can't happen anywhere within Hampton Roads.
you know how I feel about Newport News government, but that's not what this show's about.
And you should repent of those thoughts.
Look, I firmly agree that God puts the people in the leader. I will defend, no matter if it's local government all the way up to the President Biden right now, who I am not a fan of. But I'm a firm, since we are talking about government, and I know I started that topic, I firmly agree that God puts those people in place. We are to pray for them. We are to respect them. We are to follow them. There's a reason why they are put there, and that's biblical. So I will never bash. Like, I'm not purposely sitting here bashing. I'm not a fan of Newport News politics. That's why I left. You know that. But I'm not going to. I know for a fact they were put in that place for a reason. And I did my voting. I voted when I was. Yeah, so we'll leave it at that. Let's talk about a religious show.
Anyway, to say that we've been dealing with that has been a challenging thing. And so with homelessness on the rise, and not just because of the immigration. I can tell you now we're up to 23 different languages being spoken at our pantry. And honestly, I can't think of how many people I could identify that are illegal immigrants. We don't ask because God commands us to feed them and to give them food, to give them drink, to give them clothing. Nowhere in there did you ever see it said shelter. But I do know that we have some, I think. But one of the challenges is a lot of people that we have up here are migrant workers, and it is coming the fall season. And so we always see an uptake of migrant workers in the area because it's time to get the harvest in. But we're seeing a lot more than what we normally do. And now, for those of you who don't know, food stamps have been dramatically cut for a lot of people. A lot of people have been moved off the program where they've been for 2 to 3 years. Medicaid has also done some major restructuring. And a lot of this is because COVID monies that had been up to this year allocated have disappeared and dried up. And October 1st, of course, we're all hearing about the budget now.
The government shut down on Saturday. Yeah.
And so a lot of those programs are now dissolved. Rental assistance, a lot of those things that existed during COVID are gone. And basically, what I'm seeing is that Well, as I've heard infamously played before, the chickens are coming home to roost. People that for the past 2-3 years have been living off of the dole of the common good are now finding out that that purse is dried up, and now they might have to do something such as maybe, oh, I don't know, something as radical as
Get a job.
yeah, get a job. So, but that's happening there. Freddie, I had a question for you.
Here it comes.
Since we are talking about church and
Yeah.
politics,
Mhm.
should pastors be preaching about who's running for what office? If the pastors are the shepherds of the church, should pastors be telling us who they feel would be the best ones to vote for?
No, I personally do not feel. Let me.
By the way, folks, our number is 757
488-5299.
5299.
Is that too high?
Yeah, it is. 757 488 5299.
So here's my personal take on this, okay? And when I was, and it's been a conversation for a while, and I've been where I've worked for churches. I understand that we are. My personal feeling is, I'm big on politics. I don't talk about it on like the show and try to in churches and all that, but I'm big on politics. Um, I, and I don't think we shouldn't as Christians not pay attention to politics, because and even though ultimately God is going to put, like I said a little while ago, God is going to put in place who he feels is the.
See, I'm going to argue with you on that.
That's okay. I'm okay with that. That's the whole point of the show.
But-
And I
but-
hope people can call in and
but-
argue with me.
Do you know? Okay, so you're telling me that every person that's involved in politics was placed there by God.
Okay, no, not every person, sure.
So, because that's the way you.
But he let it happen. He lets it happen for a
now,
reason.
I'm not going to argue with that.
He lets
point.
it happen.
Okay.
It might not be so in I guess you could say in a roundabout way, he let it happen. So
Right. Well, and I agree with that, because here's the thing: in order to get to the end, we know that we have to go through a tribulation.
Correct.
And those people are going to be in office, and those people are placed there by the enemy. And you can say that through free will.
right, like if God did not want, and I'm only gonna say this based on, I'll put both. If God did not want Trump in office when Trump was president, if God did not want Biden in office when Biden was president, like if he was like, no, that is not going to happen, he would have made sure it didn't happen. He has that power. We all know that.
So you're
He
saying
let it happen.
therefore he wanted it.
I wouldn't say he wanted it, but he let it happen. He for a reason. There was a reason behind, like you said, tribulations, trials, moving forward. There's always a reason. You know,
you got to be careful with that.
It's okay. Wait, someone call and tell me I'm wrong.
Well, somebody's going to call and say, so you mean that God meant for my mom to die with cancer?
See, that's a whole different topic.
No, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is.
No, it's divine will. He
It
could
is.
have stopped it if he wanted it
You're
to. And so he didn't stop it, therefore he wanted it.
We've all had that conversation with our pastor on why God lets bad things happen to people, unfortunately. And we can have that. And I'm not prepared to have that conversation this show, because I'm not prepared for that. But we can have that conversation.
You better
one
be
day.
prepared, because somebody might call up at
And I will gladly
757-488-5299.
I will gladly talk to them and talk to them off air if we need to.
757-488-5299, and he's sitting right across from me. And notice I will scoot up to this side.
They can watch me on YouTube.
That's okay. I don't have to worry about it.
You're
God's
correct.
got perfect aim.
God's not going to. It's the truth. God lets bad things, unfortunately, happen to great people.
Does he, see?
We have to die.
We're talking.
We're going home.
Here. No, we're talking syntax here.
Well, in a way, yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that's a topic. I've heard a lot of people saying that pastors need to get out there more to help get out the vote. Now, unfortunately,
I can tell you this: there are some pastors who are good at getting people out to vote.
Well, and here's the thing, though, they're endangering their church's 501c3.
That is true. That part I do know.
It is illegal for your pastor to tell you who to vote for.
Correct.
Or even to discuss from the pulpit people. But you are, as a pastor, allowed to discuss the issues.
That's where I was going to go
of
with
voting.
Right. You can.
Yes.
I would never personally say vote for Trump or Biden, Kamala Harris, regardless of who the person is. I would never
from when I was a youth leader, or if I'm preaching, I would never say God told me to tell you to vote for this person. It's not going to happen. Not because of the fact that it would hurt the church if someone reported the church because of government issues. But it's just not the right thing. It's not, either way, it's not good to sway. We can talk about the issues, abortions.
See, now there
gay
you go. I
marriage.
knew you were going to hit that. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Have you heard, and granted you've got limited, but have you ever heard of a pastor preaching one way or the other about abortion?
I've never heard one saying it was good.
Have you ever heard anyone say that it was against God's law?
I've only heard really 4, you being one of the 4. No, I can't think of the 4 I've personally heard. I mean,
No, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to almost bet. In fact, if you're on listening right now, 757-488-5299, if your pastor has spoken against abortion, 757-488-5299, give a shout out for your pastor for preaching the word of God. I'm kind of curious about that because I think a lot of pastors have avoided that topic, because I believe a number of pastors out there would consider that if they preached against it, they would lose people. And if they preached for it, they would lose people. And so therefore, silence is the better of both values, I guess. By not talking about it, they can leave. But give us a call at 757-488-5299. That's 757-488-5299. I want to give a shout out to Hartman's Dentistry. Folks, if you call Hartman's right now, you need to tell them that you heard about them from Tim, brother Tim at the Picking Up the Habit, so that you can get on their short list to be able to be seen relatively soon. Their number is 757-873-3407, 757-873-3407. Call Hartman's Dentistry, mention that you heard about them on the air, and they will get you on their
Oh no, go ahead, finish. I'm
Short
happy right now.
list.
Oh yes, please give Hartman Dentistry a call. They, like we talked about last week, they are very busy, but if you mention you are listening to their show, they will put you on a list and give you a call. Call Dartman.
Right. Go ahead.
Remember that tirade I said I was probably going to go on if we talked about something during the show tonight?
Yeah.
My man Mark is on the phone. He wants to talk about First Amendment and
Mark,
freedom of speech.
okay, Mark, welcome to Picking Up the Habit. How would you like to start?
Yes, hi. Yeah, well, the First Amendment gives us freedom of religion, freedom of speech. And before 1960s, when they put that gag order on pastors, and which that needs to be reversed, and it can be. It's just a political thing that needs to be accomplished, and probably will be sometime eventually. They restore our First Amendment rights, which is First Amendment. It's it's top priority of being an American, and freedom of religion and speech, not hate speech, but just speech regardless. I absolutely believe, as it used to be before the 1960 tag on to, I don't remember what the legislation is called, but I'm sure you all do. In any case, that we the people should be able to stand up anywhere, and especially in a church or any type of an assembly, even in a school, and say what they want to say on one side or the other of a political issue. I do believe in equal time, and if one, meaning bipartisan in effect, if there's someone that wants to address the other side of an argument in a public forum, even be it in the church, I think that's reasonable. But regardless, what do we need to do to restore that First Amendment right that was taken away by the Johnson Amendment?
Okay, so that was in 1954, Mark. But my question is, I hear two different things going. Pastors can go ahead and speak about the issues. We're just not allowed to pick a political campaign. That's the difference.
Yeah, I understand that, but in order to talk about the issues,
no, I can say that I can say we are against abortion, and these candidates are against abortion as well. We are for this. I'm able to give examples, but I'm not able to stand. I think that you should vote for so and so because he's this and this. It's kind of a reverse. Instead of voting for a person, I say you vote on these issues, and these are the people who reflect those issues.
Which take very little effort to connect the dots. And what you're saying is if you couch it that way, then it doesn't violate the Johnson Amendment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, that's good news.
That's the exact.
That's good news.
That's like saying when you go into church, don't like such and such person from the pulpit. Same thing, just in a larger scale. They don't want us to sway anybody because, unfortunately, we're all as pastors and preachers, and we know that there are people who, unfortunately, will follow us or just pastors in general. So that order was put to prevent if Frady is on the pulpit preaching to a church of 1 million people, going, only vote for this candidate, and then no one pays attention to anything besides that.
Well,
candidate.
where the history for this, Mark, came into the fact that a lot of and even today, the electorate is not that very much educated. And so a pastor has the ability to sway a large group of people to vote for people without them even knowing what they're voting for. So this way, they're educated on the issues instead of the people.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay,
But
well,
thank
that's a
you
good
for
point.
calling. I
Thank you
appreciate
Hey,
for
it.
actually, Mark,
educating me.
I got a question for you before we let you go.
Uh-oh, here we go.
No,
I
no,
know
no,
it.
no, no. It's okay.
Fasten
Mark,
your
do you
seatbelts, folks.
do you feel state employees, like say football coaches who teach at state-run universities, should be allowed to baptize people publicly? Before we let you go.
Well, you meaning on government property or anywhere?
It
just-
was government property.
Yes, there was a story coming out of Auburn where there was 200 baptisms in Auburn, and some of the coaches from Auburn University helped in these baptisms. And there's a debate about this, and we're going to talk about it now.
And it was in the Auburn Lake.
So as these coaches,
University Lake.
these
Mark.
coaches are employees of Auburn, which is a state-run university. They are paid by the state.
Well, first off, there is no amendment to the Constitution or the Bill of Rights that actually addresses separation of church and state. That was personal correspondence between Jefferson and I believe it was Adams.
Yeah, correct.
And not law, but they've tried to make it into law. They've effectively made it into law when it's not.
Okay. All right. So you would be okay with a state-run employee publicly?
Yeah,
baptizing?
I would be okay with a state on state property
Okay.
or federal property. I'd be okay with on a military base or any federal government or state government or city government property that's public property. That's like say Mount Trashmore. You know, there's a lake there. I'm not sure anybody ought to get in that water, but in any case, but if it was better water than that,
yeah,
I would say, that the government should not interfere.
And Frady, this is where whoever wrote that article is wrong, because chaplains in the military baptized on federal basis all the time. And they spoke against that.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
We appreciate you,
All
Mark.
right, thanks,
for
Mark. I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Folks, our number 757-488-5299, 757-488-5299. So before he gets going, there was an event that happened at Auburn University, and they had I believe it was a conference music concert, excuse me. And as part of this music concert, people were moved to be baptized. It started out with a trickle, and it ended up with about 200 people going into the water to be baptized. Now, first of all, I'm a little bit wondering, 200 people, that we had that many college kids that were at a Christian concert.
Supposedly 5,000 people were at this
Yeah.
worship event.
I would like to think that people that were at a Christian concert, there'd be more baptized. But anyway, they were baptized, and there are some people who are very, very upset about that.
Yes, there is.
Continue.
Let me double check. There was an organization. They sent a letter out, and they're not okay with the fact that it's called the Freedom from Religions Foundation. It's a nonprofit anti-religion organization that advocates for atheists, agnostics, and non-theists. Said the mass baptism was unconstitutional and inappropriate.
Yes, but we already know, because if anybody remembers Coach Joe Kennedy, who was not, I thought it was Texas. He's a Washington State high school football coach who was fired because after football games, he would go to the 50-yard line and would pray. And over time, that became a tradition that happened at his high school. It did not come from him forcing it on anyone. It just gradually began happening. It started around 2015, and he was fired in, I believe, 2019. And it took 3 years for his court case to get to Supreme Court, and he won 3-6, I believe. So the question, 6-3, he won. That he was allowed to do that. And then my understanding is he got his job back. He played one football game and then he retired.
Yeah.
So no matter who this Freedom from Religion Foundation is, they have nothing. They don't have.
No, I agree with you on that, and I believe that their letter is not going to go anywhere. But here's my question, and I'm not going to pick on. I know some people, and I want people to give us a call, 757-488-5299, because I want to take both sides on this approach, honestly. And I knew you weren't prepared for that. You thought I was going to go.
What do you mean, take both sides?
I think you can't have it both ways. I think both sides are fighting the same thing against each other.
What do you mean both sides?
I think like the FFRF organization, they feel it was inappropriate and
Freedom from Religious Foundation.
Right. They thought it was wrong for the coaches and some of the wives to be a part of this organization because they're state-run employees. But on the flip side, we got things like, and before anyone says anything, because that was a question Tim said, the Satanic Group. I know just locally, but they're a nationwide thing. They're not related, from my understanding. They're two totally different agendas. But I know, like locally, there are Christians and churches trying to shut down them.
Right, but see, so that's what. Oh, so you're saying that we should allow the
either
Satanic
if you
group.
want that's my point. It's like you either have to have it one way or the other. Either it should be nobody has the right to speak, like First Amendment, which I'm totally against. First Amendment, freedom of speech. I'm wholeheartedly, but you can't fight the enemy and say they can't do something that speaks against what you want when you want the same thing for you, is my personal opinion.
So in other words, you're saying that a school property, let's Chesapeake School was library. They were going to have the Satanic Club, and a bunch of Christians stood up and said that was wrong.
Correct.
And the Satanic Club was saying, well, if that's wrong, then you can't have your Bible studies either. And you agree with that?
That I agree with. Correct. I don't like it. I don't like the Satanic Group. I don't like what they stand for.
That's fine.
But yes, if you're going to, if us as Christians or as non-theists, or if you want your agenda and what you want, then you have to. Free will is big in the Bible. Free will is big in religion, in my personal opinion. Free will is huge. People have to get the right to pick their. And no, I don't want people to talk about Satan. I mean, you can't not believe about Satan, in my personal opinion, and believe about God. But I don't want people to have. I want to fight that, and I wish people didn't talk about that. But in government type entities like schools and events, yes, I feel you can't have it both ways. If you want your side to be heard, you have to allow the other side to be heard also. You just have to have a better argument.
757-488-5299, 757-488-5299. Folks, give us a call at 757-488-5299. I've got to step off the air here. I've got to get some bullets into my proverbial guns to let Frady have it in a couple of ways. I really do agree with him to an extent, but we're going to discuss that extent at the top of the hour. You're listening to the Lighthouse Radio Network here on WWPMH AM 1270, 96.9 and 100.1. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Lighthouse, W245CK Suffolk, W261DI Norfolk, and WPMH Newport News.
Post-COVID travel is on a surge. Many of you are traveling for fun because you've been locked up for 2 years. Listen, whether you're traveling for fun to Italy, Greece, Spain, France, or somewhere else fun in the world, or USA, now is a great time to book before the crowds hit and save. Plus, with a strong U.S. dollar, you'll get more travel bang for your buck. Right now is a smart time to make your reservations and call low-cost airlines. With one phone call, you can let us do all the work for free. We'll shop hundreds of airlines, hotels, resorts, and give you a way to save huge money on your vacation plans. And if you call right now, we'll give you a free hotel room with a qualified travel purchase. So call right now.
800-815-6250. 800-815-6250. 800-815-6250. That's 800-815-6250.
Hi, this is Steve Arterman. Join us for New Life Live each weekday. Real people, real issues, and real answers.
My husband and I have been married for a year.
My question was, what does integrity look like in a man?
She's doing the laundry.
Yeah, she's down in the coal mine.
Okay, she's down in the coal mine doing her thing.
Doing your laundry.
Doing her thing.
And here's the biblical principle.
It seems like there's a real disconnect between how she sees things and how you see things.
Heard Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. on The Lighthouse.
Mold, trash, rodents, snakeskin, even deceased animals. No, this isn't a Halloween shopping list. It's what might be under your house, in your crawl space. Schedule a free crawl space inspection with the Crawl Space Company and find out what's in your crawl space. Call 757-394-3494 to schedule your free inspection or visit thecrawlspacecompany.net. So, do you know what's in your crawl space?
Actual client review of Hartman Dentistry.
I just want to say that I just went to Dr. Hartman, and she is absolutely wonderful.
What did you think when you walked in? Did it just feel like it was a relaxing place to be?
Yes, it's very nice, very clean, very bright. You're not sitting in a room with just four walls. The room that I was in, you could see outside.
Did you have a wait before you walked in?
I was there maybe 15 minutes before I got into the office, and so I got into my chair, and then maybe another 30 minutes while the technician, did X-rays and all.
And so, are you going to go back and get your teeth fixed the way she says?
I'm going to try. I am going to try because I really trust her, and the only reason I went is because you thought so highly of her.
I got to tell you, I'm in love.
Give Hartman Dentistry a call at 757-873-3407.
Hey, everybody, this is Brother Tim. I'm sitting here with Frady.
What up?
It's Wednesday. It's 6 o'clock, and we're having a little discussion. But first of all, I want to reiterate what we said earlier. Yes, if you call Hartman's Dentistry, they are booked 90 days out. They may be up to 120 days now. But if you mention that you called, you listened on Picking Up the Habit, they will put you on a short list. And that means that they will get you in. When there's a cancellation, you will be one of the first people that are called to fill in for that person. So if you call today, you're liable to be on the short list and be called tomorrow. So give Hartman Dentistry a call. Tell them you listen to Picking Up the Habit here on the Lighthouse Radio Network, 757-873-3407. That's 757-873-3407. Now, before we left, phrase this, Frady brought up the topic about Auburn State baptized, and basically, to sum it up, if I'm right, if we're feeling that a Christian group can meet on campus and have prayer, we should let the Satanists meet on campus and pray too.
And vice versa, correct.
Vice versa.
Correct.
Okay, and Thomas is on the line. Thomas, are you still there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what would you like to add? I'm going to back up, Thomas, okay? Should I get some paper towels and stuff like that to wipe up after you let Frady have it?
Thomas is a great guy. He would not do that.
Go ahead, Thomas. Let him have it. Both barrels.
Years ago, I took Chuck Norris's bringing the Bible into the public schools to the Chesapeake Public School Board administrators, and I said, I want to get this in as an elective, and it will teach the Bible from a cultural and literature point of view only. And I pointed out to them how positive the impact would be, and that they didn't even need to have a Christian teach it. God will speak for itself and likely will convert some souls. And their response was, if we do that, we'll have to allow some Muslim group to teach the Quran if they want to do it. And I said, yeah, you might have to do that. I said, but I pointed out, but in my view, the Quran, God bless them, everyone, if you compare the two, you're certainly going to see positive things from the Christian literature that are not there, and I think it would have the win in the debate. But my point is that the heart of God is clear. Let the wheat and the tares grow together until the harvest. And I'm with Brady completely. I don't like it, but I believe that is the heart of God, and that also lines up with allowing the public square sexual mores to be decided on a state level.
Okay, so Thomas and Frady, I have a question. Now,
I feel validated, by the way.
As you both know, I used to be a practicing Wicca high priest for 15 years, witchcraft. And there are a lot of branches of witchcraft that are out there. One of them being, my mind just drew a blank.
We can't help you that.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
But as part of their service, they would sacrifice a chicken. So are you saying that that priest should be able to walk to the 50-yard line of a football field after the football game, sacrifice a chicken on the field, and proceed to worship their deities?
In my personal opinion, if the football wants to do a prayer before the game, yes.
What do you say, Thomas?
No, because it would offend the sensibilities of most of the people, and they're not because of religion one way or the other, but because it would be insensitive to the feelings of the people and the young people that are gathered. There are certain things that you just have to have some concern about the well-being of the people. You can't just ignore what people think in general, and that's the whole problem with morality.
Okay,
exactly
so that's an extreme view. What if a person was praying to their god and goddess and sliced the palm of their hand enough to generate blood? Would you allow that or not allow that?
It's out of bounds. You want to do that in your private thing, then if it's legal, you can do that. If it's not legal in your state, no matter whether you have that religion or not, it should not be allowed. If somebody knows about it, they could legally stop you.
Okay, but no, slicing the palm of your hand is legal. There's nothing illegal about that.
I don't know. I'm just bringing up the possibility.
All right.
But as far as publicly doing it on a football field, you're offending people. It's offensive to their sensibilities.
But if you go out there and you preach the Quran as the divine word of God, you would be offending Christians.
Well, I don't believe the gentleman was preaching. I believe he was praying.
Praying, correct. All right, but Frady's saying if you're going to have a group where they teach the gospel, they should also be able to teach the Quran.
Yes, and yes, that's my
Okay.
personal opinion. But I also agree with Thomas, in not the whole, like he said, not from a religious standpoint, just from a public standpoint, from a overall moral standpoint. I agree with that. There's children, and yes, that part I could agree with. But again, I would probably also go, if we're not going to allow this witch to sacrifice a chicken, because it might offend people, when we know there's people in the crowd who might be offended if we pray to God, I probably wouldn't allow either, because if we're doing it more basically on
it's Santeria.
Two different kinds of offenses here.
Right.
One offense is violent and shedding of blood. The other one is just a different kind of offense. And the Supreme Court has already ruled that you can pray if you want.
True
All right.
story. That's true.
Thank you.
If somebody's offended, they'll get over it.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Our number, folks, is 757-488-5299, 757-488-5299.
Admit it, you were not expecting Thomas to agree with me.
Yeah, I was, but I have to confess that now I'm going to hit you with the whammy.
Sure, come on.
Don't we say that the blood of Christ is the shedding of blood during communion?
I mean, yes, but
Aren't
we do that in churches.
celebrating? Well, if somebody wanted to hold a church service on the field and they did Eucharist, should they be allowed to do that?
I already said I would agree with both, so that was a good question. You should ask Thomas.
Yeah.
I already said I would have let both happen. Yes, I agree with Thomas. It's graphic, and children could have got scarred, and that part's not cool. And I don't.
Well, believe it or not, though, that actually happens in true Santeria church services. Kids are brought up with that. So, folks, our number is 757-488-5299. That's 757-488-5299.
I want to hear if there's anyone who doesn't agree with me. If they don't think, I mean, I'm just big on freedom of speech should be freedom of, like, no, not side of hate speech and not saying talk, but I mean, no, I'm not saying but freedom of speech in a not even biblical, but a general appropriate setting, just put your viewpoints on why you feel your thing. Like I said, as much as I don't like the Satanic Club and I don't want them in our schools and our libraries and all that, I don't think they're doing good. I got to understand that what they're saying is, like, you're telling me we should have church groups in schools, but you can't have. Same thing with this organization, this Freedom Against. I'm sure they are okay with having Satanic clubs. They might. They're not. I mentioned they're not affiliated. I don't know.
No, I'm sure they wouldn't stand for that either.
You think so?
No, because they're freedom from religion. They're normally groups like that are normally very consistent. Because they know that the first thing that would happen, the first court case, they would be brought up and blown out of court. But
okay,
there's one thing that
Valerie thinks we're having great discussion points, by the way.
One of the issues that I have with regards to satanic, okay, the idea of what Satanists believe versus what Christians believe are two different things.
I've learned that, which is shocking to me.
Okay. Well, because when I was practicing as Wicca, witch from the hearth, we would not acknowledge Satan. But there's a reason. We didn't acknowledge Jesus either.
And that I'm okay with.
Okay.
That I'm okay with.
But hang on. What's another name for Satan? He's the anti-Christ.
Christ.
So if you don't recognize that there's a Christ,
you can't believe there's an Antichrist, right?
Right.
I truly believe
so people who practice paganism do not recognize Satan as a being, as a deity.
Right.
Okay. That's a Christian concept. Now, Christians hate it when I used to bring that up, but you can't, because the Antichrist is the opposite polarity of Christ. Where Christ was self-sacrificing, Satan is selfish. Where Christ is about good, Satan is about evil. Now, it's important to understand that there are only 4 religions in the world.
Go ahead. I've heard this argument. Go ahead.
Judaism.
Yep.
Islam.
Yep.
Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And then D, pagan, which is defined as neither Jew nor Christian or Muslim. Okay. Pagan is any religion that is not Jew, Christian, or Muslim. Now, there's a lot more things about that. The 3 are patriarchal. They trace their lineage through the father. Paganism traces their origin through the mother. The 3 are monotheistic. There is one God, Allah, Jehovah, Christ. Paganism says there's many gods and goddesses. It's polytheistic. So there's a lot of differences with that. And it's important to understand that you can't, when you deal with people not of your faith, and our number is 488-5299, 757-488-5299. When you deal with people that are not of your faith, you are not going to succeed if they don't acknowledge your faith. In other words, we believe that the Bible is the divine, inspired word of God.
Correct.
If they don't acknowledge the Bible, then using the Bible is
I
not
agree.
going to work in the argument.
I agree and disagree. Yes, I know where you're going. We've had, and yet I can preach Bible all day long. If they're not going to believe me, I'm just speaking blue to my face. But also in the turn of events, I would still keep talking till I'm blue in the face, hoping at some point God enters them, changes their heart.
But God, if you need to speak their language, okay? I'll give you an example. We are going to be starting, I haven't announced it yet, but Livingstone Monastery will be holding regular service on Saturdays starting Advent. And that's the week after Thanksgiving. It'll start on Saturdays. The reason why we're doing it is because I have a lot of people from the pantry asking. We're not forming a church. We're just holding a church service as an extension of the monastery on Saturdays. And it will be a reading of scripture, a little short lesson, receiving of the Eucharist or Lord's Supper, however you want to phrase it. All baptized Christians are welcome, and anybody who's welcome. Baptized Christians are welcome to receive the sacrament. I know from watching my family, my congregation, I've been doing this for 14 years, and we are now seeing over 9,180 families have crossed my path.
Yeah.
That I've actually touched. We had a lady that came in this week. I've been ministering to her and her family. Her 8-year-old daughter was the one who was raped. She told me that she had a dream about me. In fact, 3 clients have told me that they had dreams about me yesterday. I don't know what that means one way or the other, but I know that my life experiences, what I have gone through in my life history, prepared me for where I am today. I know that God called me to do this ministry. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been doing it for 14 years. I've been running Five Loaves Food Pantry for 14 years. And the people that I meet, I'm able to relate to because of what's happened in my past. There's a saying that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the call. I know when I was younger, 18 through 20, 22, 23, that God called me to this life, but I did not want to yield. I completely did not want to. And in college, I went completely away from God. And
Buck wild, you went.
Buck wild. And that's why I became Wiccan for 15 years. Because there I could justify being what I wanted to do, what I felt that was right, until I got arrested. And I got arrested for drugs. It wasn't a drug that was illegal. I know some of you won't believe that, but you can browse me. It's in the pilot.
Yes, it is.
And when I went to jail, for a short period, I maintained myself as a pagan. But eventually I realized that I had screwed my life up. in jail, there is a saying, God will throw you on your back in order to get you to look up at him. I believe that happened. I prayed to God and said, listen, I've made a mess of my life. If you still want me, you need to let me know. And of course, he did still want me. And while I was in prison for 3 years, I lived as a monk. I did 132 correspondence Bible courses of all different faiths, which is why I know a little bit about a lot of them. But the issue is, when I speak to people, I'm able to speak to their situation where they are. In my faith group, the Church of England, Anglican, a lot of our priests, our pastors, are very highly educated. They have their masters. They have their PhDs. A lot of faith groups require at least a master's, if not a PhD. I don't have that. My bishop ordained me with what he called by the book, call it street knowledge. And I can communicate to the people that come in the pantry.
I totally agree with you. I feel very similar. As you know, I didn't grow up in the church. I feel, I didn't get baptized till almost before I met you at 30. So yeah, no, I agree with that. There are, I feel like I've seen system churches like the homelessness and the people who come through Five Loaves where I have judged them significant. Like you, we don't judge them. We look at them as people, and that's not against anyone who's any of the various denominations and people who've come to help because their heart was in the right place. But we have seen it sometimes where they've judged the people who've come through there because, like you said, they've been Christians their whole life. They followed the Bible their whole life. They've stuck in what they call the right and narrow their whole life. They're more educated. They don't understand because they didn't live that life where we've lived that life to a point. I was buck wild. I didn't have the situation like Tim, but I lived a very sinful. I wanted to be the Howard Stern of DJ, of karaoke host. I want to be Howard Stern my entire 20s. Anyone who knows Howard Stern, they knows I didn't live a non-sinful life until I found Christ. So I agree with you on that respect. I think it's the street now, and that's why God called the people he called. Jesus called the people he called. When he called them, he didn't call the Pharisees. He didn't call the educated. He didn't call. I mean, there were some educated people, men in that group, like Matthew and all that, but he didn't call the perfect ones. He called the ones who related to the people they were preaching to.
Exactly. So the thing is, when you're speaking to somebody that's not a Christian, you got to speak at their language, and you've got to speak from your heart and not from your mind. You can't talk down to them. You need to speak to their heart. And when you witness to people that believe in Satan, you can't talk to them about Satan as an evil god. Okay. You just have to learn to speak their language to engage them in a conversation. You can't use logic in many instances, like Frady was using earlier. You can't say, if they do this, then we should allow this. If we don't allow this, we shouldn't allow that. That is where most of our listeners are. Okay. Most of our listeners, I believe, are of a higher educated level, and they would say the same thing. Politically, they would agree with you. Spiritually, I think they would disagree with you.
I would agree with that. We know,
Okay. And I think it's important for us to be aware when we talk to people. I have a lot of people that come into our pantry and they say things like, I want to know the Jesus that you know. I want to know the God that you know. And I find that very hard to believe because I want to know where they came from, that my idea of who God is, which I believe is biblical and is the true version of what God is, where have they been that they have not learned that?
I mean, they could have been the same place like you were at, where you just, I mean, It's just they didn't feel loved. They didn't feel.
Well, and
I
see
mean,
that's where it comes from.
like-
A lot of churches say one thing,
And
for
they do another.
example, come as you are.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
I'll sing the Matthew West song right now.
No. We say to people, come as you are. We don't care what you dress as.
That is not true.
Just come as you are. And then you have to watch what happens. Okay. There have been many, many, many instances of pastors who have come to their churches as a homeless person
And got rejected.
by their very own people. It is one of those things. There's a book that was, to me, the founding of the What Would Jesus Do movement. And that's what happened. They were visited by an individual who asked them, if I was Jesus, would this be the way he would be welcomed?
The Jesus Revolution movie is basically about that, where hippies and all that, and they were judged. They're like, oh, you're below us, you're hippies. And it was a hippie that started the whole Jesus Revolution movement.
And so as we get ready to go tonight, I think that it behooves us all to just reflect. How approachable are we as Christians? How relatable are we as Christians? If you meet somebody on the side of the road and you just give them $1, or do you actually take the time to sit down with them and ask them their story? Their story is where you get to meet them. Their story is where you get to find out where they are and how Jesus can help them. And in getting to know them, think about what Jesus did at the well.
He didn't judge that woman.
Think about what Jesus did when he met Matthew.
Loved on him.
Think about what Jesus did with Lazarus.
Didn't judge him.
He was a leper. Think about all of these people that Jesus had interactions with and see if you would be as Jesus in those situations. Would people not see me, but see the Jesus that is in me? That's what we want people to see. And I got to tell you, that's my birthday wish for me.
We can do that.
The more people would not see me, but would see Jesus, because it's for him that I live, and I hope that you live. One of these days we're going to die, but until we do, are you living for Christ? If you're a husband, yes, you're a husband. If you're a mom, you're a mom. If you're a son and daughter, you're a son and daughter. But all of those do not preclude you from living for Jesus. Because if you're a husband, you'll love your wife as Christ loved the church. Same thing with the wife. If you're a child, you'll honor your father and mother. Think about it. Are you living for Jesus this week? Thanks for listening to Picking Up the Habit. We'll be back next week, 5:30, here on the Lighthouse Radio Network, AM 1270, 96.9 and 100.1 FM. Have a nice and blessed night.